I've asked 3 of the most accurate prophets I know to tell us what will happen in 2020. It will shock most of you. This is special, Hank, because we're living in very special times.
You know, I've been talking a lot. I know you follow our ministry. This was from New Year's Eve, and just a few days ago. We had been prophesying a lot the last month about Iran and North Korea. There's been a retaliation. There's been a general of the Iranian army, top commander, that's been taken out. And of course, the news media is all over it, calling the president a warmonger and all of this. And here's where we have to be careful, and this is why I'm coming to represent the heart of God. I very little listen to the news, and I do it on purpose. Because when I do hear people talk against, for example, the president, they're speaking impeachment, I hear the Lord laughing, because that's not God's idea, nor is it His agenda. And God reveals His news through His prophets. Amos 3:7. He does nothing in the earth unless He reveals His secrets to His servants, the prophets. But the enemy, though, uses the airwaves. He's the prince of the power of the air. So the enemy, how does he? He has to have prophets. He has to have the local media, the national, international media, voice what his agenda is. Now he's trying to get us to agree with impeachment. He's trying to get us to come against this president that happens to be God's plan, God's man, for a mission of mercy that he's trying to show the church that right now you've got a friend of Israel, you've got a friend of the church. Paul prayed, let the door of the gospel remain open. This president is a friend of you, Christian. Oh, but he's immoral. But listen, do not be quick to judge, because they had tried to impeach Moses, but yet Moses was God's choice and God's man to rescue and deliver a nation, and the same is true. But here's what the enemy's trying to do. Get people to agree with hearsay. So I want to share a revelation of what God is saying. Here's what God said on New Year's, because I don't want you to fear about Iran. I don't want you to think there's a warmonger. We've got 4 horns, just like Zechariah 4, that are trying to rise up. And if we don't pray, and if we don't get the right president, which I believe is Trump, it's God's man for this next election, we're going to be faced with 4 horns. Russia, Iran, North Korea, and China. And they will rise up to be enemies. But God has anointed this president to strip them of their power. And what the enemy wants to do to preempt a war for World War III. But here's what God says. A retaliation shall arise through this president to those in other nations who think that they can bring and afflict fear and harm. They shall say, he's but a warmonger, hungry for war. But God says, do not be fooled. For I'm going to show you the strength and the power of what I'm going to do to raise you up even greater, United States, that your enemies will begin to fear the name United States again. Do not fear retaliation when you see it before your eyes, but watch what I do in the place of the Middle East. Those who have opposed will be removed.
You have a vision starting at 2020 for the next decade, actually if it went a little longer. Tell us some of the things you've seen.
Yes, February 12th of 2019, God showed me a vision that went into 12 years. And He said, Hank, I can't show you beyond this because your spirit cannot handle beyond this. And He said, the reason it's 12 years is because I've come to set things in order in the earth should I choose to tarry. And here's what I saw, some of the things. First of all, He said there will be 2 specific signs to reveal great awakenings. And this will begin to happen. He said protests and power outages. And we've already seen since that word fulfilled power outages as a sign that the places that are going to experience these power outages are going to be significant. For those that sit in darkness are going to see a great light. Talking about light, he talked about how there's going to come inventions of light that have to do with medical cures. Medical cures, watch, it's coming for children, especially in the area of cancers. There are major medical breakthroughs that are going to come out of Israel. The Lord's going to show us how simple this has been. And
no wonder the devil's trying to destroy Israel.
Yes, that's right. Well, because Israel is where the Lord brought the original balm of Gilead, the healing balm from Israel. It's going to happen again out of Israel. Major medical discoveries that won't be held up through bureaucracy because of just the evidence that's coming. One of the other things I saw is the Lord bringing land rest. And in fact, I was watching the weatherman. They were talking about how they were prognosticating all these hurricanes. And all of a sudden, the hurricanes didn't happen. And they were saying, what is going on? And God said in the vision, this is because I have given the land rest. And I said in the vision, I said, well, how can this be possible? Don't you understand, God, all of the evil? And the Lord said, listen, I raised up a man, Joseph, a righteous man under a king or a ruler, Pharaoh, who did not know the Lord or honor the Lord. Yet I gave the land rest because of Joseph. This is what's coming upon the United States, and it's what's coming upon the earth. Rest. And the other thing we're going to see, God said this, and in every decade, okay, there's always something significant that happens in every decade. You know, music, or maybe, you know, like the hippie movement or something like that. This decade, God said, has been given to and for the children. That's why there's going to be major breakthroughs regarding childhood diseases and things that have plagued this generation. The things that we've seen regarding certain cancers, Alzheimer's, diabetes are going to be known, watch this now, as sicknesses of the past. This is how much God is going to let it rain upon the just and the unjust. The Lord's desire is 3 elections to raise up His plan that He wants to cover a recompense movement. Okay, pay attention to the words. The trumpet has to sound. I just heard it, recompense. Recompense. But the trumpet has to sound louder for a while to expose corruption. That's one of the things that we're going to see is major corruption. In fact, Putin is going to get restless in Russia, but God's going to cage him. China's going to try to come to the aid of North Korea, but they're going to have so many of their own issues in their economy and protests that are going to arise. Asia Minor is going to become Asia Major outbreakings. The underground church is about to arise as the bamboo curtain comes down. The veil that's been over the Middle East, there's going to be major movements of people gathering in the Middle East, even in the United States, especially among the children, but in the Middle East. Watch the areas of the pyramids. And the president at the time of this happens in Egypt, is going to allow these not protests, but gatherings of worship where the areas of the pyramids are, and they're going to say, Yeshua, Yeshua, Yeshua. This is going to happen. Major difference of music is going to start coming out of the nations. A different sound in worship and praise is going to begin to take place. Supreme Court vacancies. I mean, it's going to seem like one after another, it's going to start happening. And there is yet, God has not yet pulled the covers back, but there is a major exposing that is coming at a very high level that will even touch the Supreme Court. That will be part of the reason why vacancies will take place. But there are coming rulings like 8-1, 6-3, 7-2, and it's going to shock people because we're getting judges righteous as the first.
I'll tell you what, I like happy endings. Now, my next guest has seen judgment or sickness and even death hitting many ministers and politicians this year. Be right back. O'Neill with another friend that's been a guest frequently, Tracy Cooke. And I have to tell you, I am in awe of the gifting this man has. Tracy.
Yes, sir.
I thought last year there would be such an outpouring of God's glory. Now, it was, but not the degree I was looking for. Do you have any insight as to why?
Yes, sir. Said one of the things God began as I seek the Lord, and the Lord says, the glory, there's so much message about the glory, the kabod of God. But there's the glory of God, when it really comes, it should change the nature of who we are. Amen. It should change not just our inside, but our outside as well. And I said, Lord, what's delayed in the greater glory? And the Lord said to me, He says, Samson is a type of the 21st century church. Samson has 7 lots. Now, the Nazarene covenant was that none of the lots could be cut.
Right.
Well, the strength wasn't in the hair, the strength was in the vow. And God told me there's broken vows of the glory. We're seeing in the days that we're living prophetically the unrepentant church. The church has become so unrepentant. And it parallels to the United States of America. United States have slept in the beds of our enemies, and now our enemies is rising up, opposing the United States. That's why we got to pray for Trump. And God showed me each one of those lots represents a government structure of the church. And one by one, the responsibility of the prophets is help to restore those lots back to the church. And there's a spirit of perversion that has entered and weaved itself into the four walls of the church.
In what areas are perverted?
For instance, well, several of them. When we talk about the spirit of perversion, we talk about the spirit of greed. God will bless you financially, and that's true. But that should not be your motives to bring revival. So God is shifting that. Then the Lord showed me that the spirit of abortion. We want to argue our theology, but babies are dying. That could be the next prophet, that could be the next president, or the next cab driver, or whatever the case may be. And we want to argue our silly philosophies and our theologies instead of saying, God, how can we get closer to you as a nation, as a people, and turn America back to the heart of God? And I believe that this president, irrespective of what we think about all his ways, he's set man. So God showed me some of those lots has to deal with that. And the spirit of perversion.
When you say a set man?
The set man for the nation.
He's God's choice?
He's God's choice.
Okay.
He really is God's choice. Irrespective of how you believe, different conducts or way or character, what have you, God will deal with that. But one of the lots was the spirit of perversion coming to a Davidic house. God said in the last days He's going to restore the tabernacle of David, or the Davidic lineage. Well, the house of David is perverted. We've got more corrupt prophets than we ever have. That's a rise of corrupt prophets. Now everybody's a prophet on every corner, every street. And that's not the case. There's got to
people like the title prophet.
They love the title, but they don't have the substance. We don't deal even with our own house privately. See, we want to judge a White House, but we don't want to deal with our house. Judgment begins in and out of my house, saith the Lord. So you want to cast judgment and stones at this president, and you may have good cases and what have you, whatever the case may be. But you need to first look at your own house before you start casting judgment towards the White House. That's what I would speak.
What have you seen about this next election?
In my dream, Trump got reelected. But in my dream, there was Hillary that was planning and plotting, trying to have the Democratic to be an opposition against Trump. And the Lord,
I've never seen, it seems like all that's done in Congress is opposition.
It's opposition. Well, opposition is just an indication of breakthrough.
That's right.
Anytime there's opposition, it just means there's an indication of breakthrough. My past victory is just an indication, hey, I'm about to be promoted, so we're going to see that with this president. What God wants to do now, and I do have some warnings as well, it's just not going to be peaches and creams. There's going to be some things that's got to be line by line, precept by precept. But in my dream, he won the second election.
Did you see anything about New York City?
New York City? Now, one of the things I've seen about New York City, that God's going to bring a shaking because of the Democratic Party, the corruption even with the babies. I prophesied that this year when I was in New York City, there would be a Democratic would start dying 3 at a time. Just wouldn't be one, but it would be 3 at a time. And that God would shake the Democratic Party, and that there would be a revival that would break out in New York City. And the churches that permitted, and one of the lots was homosexuality, because the churches had ordained preachers that are homosexuals, and now they're leading worship and praise. And I prophesied in New York City that will be judged, and it would be in 2020.
What about someone watching right now has heard what you said about judgment beginning in the house of God? Talk to them for 1 minute and give us hope.
2020 is going to be a time that God's going to expedite prophecies. He's going to speed up your dreams, your vision. You're going to step into business. It's going to flourish. It's going to grow. He's going to call prophetic snipers, apostolic moves of God. He's going to bring you out of Lodabar depression. He's going to bring you out of that place of defeat. He's going to bring you to that place of victory. And I hear the Lord saying, even in the next 30 days, things are going to be shaken. Do not be dismayed. Do not be fearful, because the angels are going before you, and you're going to see the way made, and you're going to see God begin to make ways where there seem to be no ways. I will encourage you to grab a hold of the horns of the altars, stand flat-footed on the Word of God, stand on that prophecy that God spoke to you. Though it has tarried, wait on it, because 2020, He's going to expedite those prophecies, those dreams, and those visions. I encourage you.
My next guest has a dramatic warning dream for President Trump. Sure hope he's listening. Be right back.
Call now and get this exclusive 2020 Prophetic Outlook package, which includes Jeremiah Johnson's brand new book, Trump and the Future of America, and this exclusive revelatory 3-part audio CD, 2020 Prophetic Outlook, with prophecy from Hank Kunneman, Jeremiah Johnson, and Tracy Cooke. Plus, you will receive this powerful book, Prophetic Words for 2020. This is exclusive for our It's Supernatural audience. Yours for a donation of $39. Shipping and handling is included. Ask for offer number 9674. You will receive Jeremiah Johnson's brand new book, Trump and the Future of America. In this book, you will discover what God is saying regarding the winner of the 2020 U.S. election, 3 principalities dominating America, the mystery of Abraham Lincoln and Donald Trump, Kanye West and the coming entertainment revival, a prophetic word to baby boomers. You will also receive Tracy Cooke's, Jeremiah Johnson's, and Hank Kunneman's 3-part audio CD series, 2020 Prophetic Outlook. Hank Kunneman has declared the next 10 years are going to be a decade of difference. This CD series will provide answers to the following. Understand the 7 vows of God that America has broken and America must repent for. What will happen within the Supreme Court? Will this be the year of the outpouring of God's greater glory? What does the number 2020 mean spiritually? What will happen in nature concerning earthquakes, tornadoes, hurricanes, floods, and other calamities? How will God use our children? This 3-part prophetic CD series includes words of knowledge, proclamations, and declarations for you. But that's not all. You will also receive this powerful book, Prophetic Words for 2020, with contributions from 18 different men and women prophets. You will find out what God has in store for America, Israel, and the nations. Discover how to tap into the new era of holy power. Understand how to engage in warfare against the spirit of evolution. Learn about the Messiah-configured church and the emergence of demonic nations. Discover 5 ways the devil is trying to turn Christianity upside down. Don't miss out on getting this 2020 Prophetic Outlook package, which includes Jeremiah Johnson's brand new book, Trump and the Future of America, and this exclusive revelatory 3-part audio CD, 2020 Prophetic Outlook, with prophecy from Tracy Cooke, Jeremiah Johnson, and Hank Kunneman. Plus, you will receive this powerful book, Prophetic Words for 2020, which includes contributions by 18 different prophetic men and women of God. This is exclusive for our It's Supernatural audience. Yours for a donation of $39. Shipping and handling is included. Ask for offer number 9674. Call or you can send your check to Sid Roth. It's Supernatural. P.O. Box 39222, Charlotte, North Carolina 28278. Please specify offer number 9674 or log on to sidroth.org. Call or write today.
Is Jeremiah Johnson. Jeremiah, what do you see coming?
You know, Sid, I had a dream at the beginning of 2019 where I was escorted into the White House. And as I walked into the White House, I realized that I had an appointment with Donald Trump. I walked into his office, and when I walked into his office, he was staring in the mirror. And it really shook me because who looked back at him was Abraham Lincoln. And as I recognized this, Donald Trump went and sat back behind his desk. And I said, Donald, I'm here to reveal to you the principalities that you're facing in America that must be torn down. And there was a large window behind him, and I ripped back the curtain, and there were 3 large principalities on the White House lawn, standing about 40 feet tall. The first principality was the principality principality of racism. God said it is an ancient evil in America that must be torn down. The next principality was called radical feminism. It was a woman with horns coming out of her head. The third principality was the god of Molech. It is the shedding of innocent blood, the feeding of and the Lord said to me, all three of these principalities are interconnected. There's a connection between abortion, how we are placing Planned Parenthoods strategically in African American demographics and neighborhoods. I believe to support Planned Parenthood is to support racism. Then we have this whole.
By the way, I don't know if you've studied the history of Planned Parenthood, but it was developed by a woman by the name of Sanger because she didn't want the African American community to be large.
That's right.
Most people don't know this.
She founded what was called the Negro Project, which God has called me to expose. So I came out of this dream with these three principalities, but even more than that, Sid, I was invited into this divine dialogue about Donald Trump and the mystery of Abraham Lincoln. And as I studied the life of Abraham Lincoln and the founding fathers, I believe God revealed to me that he raised up Abraham Lincoln in a unique time in history. He was a flawed man, but what God used him to do was to issue an emancipation proclamation concerning the slaves. I believe that God has raised up Donald Trump to issue an emancipation proclamation concerning the millions of babies that have been aborted. And here's the key. Who holds the anointing? The Lord said to me, the future of America is in the hands of the baby boomers. Said, I want to prophesy.
What age are the baby boomers?
If you were born between 1946 and 1964, God began to show me this demographic of people has been anointed by the Lord, carrying a true heart. The Lord said to me, it will be the gray hairs and the white hairs that will determine the future of America. God has raised up Trump to confront and to issue an emancipation proclamation. So I believe that baby boomers for Trump are going to arise in this nation. They have a standard of morality. They understand the history of our country. And as a millennial, Sid, I'm just here as a son to say, go baby boomers, go.
What is God's plan for America? What is His heart for our country?
I believe God's heart is to prosper us, to give us peace. I just simply believe there has to be a plumb line. There has to be a standard of righteousness that the people might discern evil from good and good from evil. I had a dream, Sid, where Donald Trump was running something like a Boston Marathon, and he had fallen down before the finish. And the crowds, Boston, they were liberal, they were yelling, they were shouting. And as I watched two older women, one on a cane and one on a walker, they made it through the crowds. And somehow, supernaturally, they picked up Donald and they helped him get to the finish line. And God is saying to me, the future of America, again, those women, they represent the praying church, but they're the baby boomers. This election is not in the bag. We've got to have the boomers arise and pray. There's going to be supernatural praying going on, but the future of America, I believe, is bright, but we have to get back to the place of prayer.